On this episode, we get to play with some real American muscle. This is a Ford Gran Torino running the great 351 cubic inch V8. And it doesn't matter where you look, you can see that this car is in beautiful condition. But there's one thing to learn this down, and that is the old rusted exhaust, which is what we are fixing today. So the car is up in the air, and the first thing we need to do is get this old exhaust off, which is proving to be easier said than done. We are using a breaker bar and some penetration lube, which isn't going very good. Seems Mikey here cannot seem to aim it straight.
Getting me more than you get. I'm not your missus, mate. Don't get me too wet. Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's either about to snap or it's coming loose.
Now, it's not likely that this is the original exhaust for the car, but regardless, it's probably more than likely 30 plus years old, and that's not going to come apart for us in a hurry. So we discussed it, and we are going to use a hacksaw to cut off one section of the exhaust so we can pull it down, which means unlike an angle grinder, it's not going to send hot pieces of fly metal everywhere.
Lead a wrench to the hole in the supercharge. You're kicking the head. I've never moved so quickly in my life.
Alright, hang on. I'm going to have to cut this because I'm going to bolt it up here. Do you want to hold it out?
Yep. Marky. Yep. Perfect. We need to go back about 2 inches and then down. Alright, down. Alright, Marky, you're on control.
So we'll twist this one down.
No, just keep on down.
I've got to dance with.
There you go. Well, that was too bad.
Let's chop it. Yeah. We want to put one of these in my Jeep and one in my Charger.
Oh, really?
Because I'm a cheapskate. Ultimate. Yeah, it's a ultimate tight ass status reach.
Now that the engine is only headers, we decided it would be a good idea to clear the old throat out, you know, just give it a little bit of rev and make sure that there's no cobwebs in these pipes. Let's talk about the exhaust that we will be making. We want to make this thing last for a very long time, so we are using 3 or 4 stainless steel pipes and bends. The mufflers are also stainless steel. The size that the owner wants to go is 2.5 inch, which is slightly bigger than the old exhaust that we are chopping up. Now you might be wondering about that, and the reason why we are chopping it up into sections is so that we can run the new exhaust and we're not completely guessing where to run it. This way we have a fixed end to run to, and it's going to make it a lot easier. Megan, I'm still useless at it, but my mate Mike, he is a gun at it. And as you can see, we are slapping some tacks on the flange for the meantime, so we can actually bolt this section onto the headers. Once that's done, we head back underneath the car to measure and cut the next section. Now, you could use a straight edge, but we're using a level, which works just as well. I'm using a permanent marker to mark the point where the curvature of the bend meets the level. This is the cutting point. Next, I use a tri-square on the level to mark the angle of the cut. It's a basic way of doing things, but it works really well and takes a lot of the guesswork out.
Okay, that's a wetback. In my fucking helmet. No, that's it, it's a male wetback, so not so bad, but now look. Oh, look, it is too. Oh. I'm welding, I'm looking at this thing inside my mask while I'm welding. And then he went for me, I was like, nah.
After a little bit of excitement, we got back into it. As you can see, we have removed the old exhaust, so now we can do the mid pipe. I will say, in hindsight, we should have made a copy of everything that we cut, so both sides would match up with each other. We wasted a lot of time trying to match the left bank to the right, so it's something I will do next time I'm doing a twin exhaust system. Well, now that we got the right side done, to the point of installing a muffler, I thought it would be a good idea to get the left side done now. The 1970 Torino header outlets are not symmetrical, which means getting them to line up the same is not so easy. First thing I did was I found a spot where I wanted both exhausts to run at the same height. Using a magnet and some tape, I'm able to work out the heights, meaning I'm not going to have one exhaust hanging way down low. Once that's done, it's pretty much just copy exactly what I did with the right side.
Okay, so now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get these lined up. So we've already done a pre-mark, but pretty much I'm just going to get the level like that. Make sure these pipes are level with each other, which they are. And then I'm just going to eye it off the gearbox bracket, which makes it a bit further this way. I'm going to double check that. Alright, let's take it off and cut it.
Let's talk about tacking. So as you can see, we could have prepped this piece a lot better. There is a gap here that would make tacking extremely hard with a TIG. So what you want to do is find a spot where the gap between the two sections of the metal is very small. You want to use higher amps than what you would when you're welding. For example, I'm tacking around 29 amps, and when I'm welding, I'm using around 17 amps. I normally would tack one side, go 180 degrees around, and then tack a second spot, but if it's a large piece, 3 or 4 times might be what you need to keep it all together.
Well, I had to walk away. It was getting way too, I wouldn't say difficult, but this is upsetting. This is actually super hard to get both of these matching, especially when you don't have the same degree of bends and all that sort of stuff. But we're getting close. So I'm going to have to chop this again and curve it a little bit more. It's about 2-3 mil off. But, I mean, it's welding, right? You can just cut and re-weld. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Just going to re-cut this weld again. Go and chuck it there, chuck an angle back on it, and we're going to try and get it right this time. And hopefully in the process I don't end up burning myself like I did last time. So let's get on to it.
So at the end of the day, this is what welding is all about. If you make a mistake, you can chop, grind it flat, clean all the burrs off, and you can start again. And that's exactly what I did. Now, I didn't have to do this. I could have just left it as it was, but because it's going on my mate's car, I want to make sure it's 100% or as close as I can personally make it. Anyway, once that's done, I put the exhaust back on.
Alright, so I'm going to give you guys a pointer if you're doing this at home with a TIG. So there's usually a bit of gap between the two different metals, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to nick metal from this and we're going to feed it onto this one and then melt it into it. So how you do that is you start with your TIG on this, on the muffler, and you run the pull around. I'll do like a little C, and that's going to bring that pull down and then put it onto the stainless steel exhaust. And then you're going to come back up and then pull it down slowly, come back up, pull it down slowly, and you just keep doing that and you end up with a pretty good and strong weld. I like to have my stuff like this, so gravity is helping me. It's making that pull drop downwards. If you do this upright, then it's going to be going back in, it's going to change the weld. I find these stronger weld. So now that I've explained that kind of, let's get into it. So as we see, we've got these both in. Every gap is identical. The length is great. The mufflers look good. I can't complain. So I'm very happy with how that's turned out now. Even though it's taken me a long time to get it this way, but hey, look, it's alright. It's schmicko. So next thing we have to do is a H-pipe, and pretty much that is a pipe that joins these two together, and it creates all good things, which I will explain why I am grinding up this piece of metal to fit onto here. Oh, there's some grinding to do. Let's get to it.
Okay, so let's talk about H-pipes versus X-pipes. If you're after power, normally an X-pipe is the winner for those who want big horsepower numbers, but for those who want low down torque, a H-pipe is normally the winner. This is a basic rule of thumb, but it's not always true because every engine is a little bit different. So really, it is kind of a guessing game, right? Until you get on the dyno. One thing I will say, it is best to have your H, X or Y pipe as close to the engine as possible. I will add a link that explains exhaust scavenging in the description a lot better.
Alright, so now that we've got this side back up in, I'm looking at the welds, they came up really nice, which I was a bit surprised about. That was a big ass gap. But we just used a little filler rod, 30 something amps, and we have cleaned that up quite nicely. So now we're just going to do the same on the other side, and then we'll add in a V-clamp in here so you can take off each side separately, otherwise you'll never be able to get the exhaust back off. So let's do this other side. Oh, this took about 2 hours, so this is the harder one. So this is going to be fun. But hey, that's cars. Let's get on to it. Now where did I put that pen? Alright, as you can see, you're joining me underneath the car at the moment. So we've got this all made up and it fits pretty good. But I was having problems like getting it straight line and up with this one. So what I've actually decided to do is make a smaller pipe. Just got a bit of offcut, use the end grinder, cut 50mm out of it, squish it together, and now we've got a pipe that will fit in. There we go. But anyway, so we've got the slide pipe on there, and that means we can now slide this pipe in. Like that, and then slide it back. And as you see there, it's going to get us right in the ballpark. We're going to check the level on it, make sure it's all straight, and then we are going to tack it and then weld it up. It's looking really good. It's coming along. Alright, let's get to that.
Let's talk about using a hole saw on stainless steel pipe. Now pretty much there's a couple of rules you want to keep in mind here. You want a hole saw that is the correct type for cutting stainless steel, you want lube, and you want a drill that is also up for the job on a low speed. Now the drill I used did end up turning into a fully functional smoke machine. Also the hole saw did actually end up burning out on the second pipe, so what I've ended up doing is using the drum well just to drill out the last little bit, and also clean up the sides so it flows really, really good.
So as you can see, we have cut a hole through there. The H-pipe is full flowing, grinded it all up, made it clean, made it all smooth, so that's going to flow good. I've cleaned it out with some water, make sure we've got all those grindings and filings out. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a bit of rag through on the bit of rope, and we're just going to pull that through like this. Nice tight fit. Whatever you do, don't lose the rag. And that's just going to pull out anything that I've missed. Well, as you see, there's a bit in there, so I'm going to do this a couple more times, and then I'm going to put it back on the car and get ready for the next mod. Alright, so now that we've got this in, it's looking good, everything is level, everything is perfectly spaced. We need to put a V-clamp in here. Now the reason why we're doing this is pretty simple. One bank, two banks, and this is all solid pipe. In his last exhaust system, it had sliders here so he could do the headers first and then head back to the rest of the exhaust. Since we've made this all solid, you're never going to be able to actually connect it if it's all one piece. So we need to put a joint in, and that's what we're doing right here. So pretty much we're just going to get 2 points of reference, probably the insides here, and then we can find out where the center is and then mark the center. Cutting out 2 pieces and chucking in that V-clamp. Simple as. So let's get to that. So as you can see, I've already cut 2 pieces of metal, and we're over here with the bench grind to grind these down as best as we can. The idea is to get these guys as flat as possible so you can TIG weld them together without using any filler rod or just a little bit of filler rod. And as you can see, I've made them both the same, so when you put them underneath the car, it all looks identical. You don't have to do this, it's just me being a bit OCD and I just want everything to look 100%. Because it's my mate's car, and to do anything less would just be an insult. Now I want to talk about the V-clamps that the owner has got. As you can see, these are interlocking V-clamps. Put them together, they lock in, they don't move. These seal so much better than the cheap ones. Downside is they do cost a little bit more, but I mean, you can't compare them. I mean, that is, you're never going to get an exhaust leak out of these. So we've made 2 pipes the same size. I'm just sanding them down so they're perfectly even, and then we're going to go back underneath the car and finish welding that up. Let's get back to it. Well, as you can see, we're at the back of the car while I'm laying those welds cool down for the middle pipe. I thought we'll come back here and actually start jigging this up a little bit. Pretty much what I've done is I've hooked the old exhaust up with a bit of copper wire, just sitting there to give us an idea of how we're going to go to get out there and get the clearance, because there was no issues with that old exhaust with clearance. Going to come over to this side, we're going to get it out, and then we're going to copy this exactly and then put it on that side, so that we can get identical pipes coming out. That's the plan anyway. Will it work? We'll just have to keep watching to find out. Let's get to it.
So we're at this point where we don't want to take off this exhaust anymore, so what I've decided to do is we're going to weld the H-pipe, and we're also going to weld these 45 bends on the end of the mufflers with some V-clamps as well. That means when we're doing the end bit of the exhaust, all we have to do is do the end bit. We don't actually have to take the whole exhaust off just to do a weld. So the last thing we do is we weld all the V-clamps up, and then we chuck the whole exhaust on the car for the last time, and then start running these pipes.
more poke maybe?
I think it has picked up a bit bottom end. I'm not saying it's got any more top end, but it definitely feels a little bit lively now.
That's always
Quite choked.
yeah, that's always a benefit, eh?
Well, as you can see, the owner was ecstatic with how that turned out sounding. He is thinking about putting extractors on there just to make it sound a bit more throatier, but oh man, sounds awesome, and that car does move for 50 years old. Anyway, if you like what we're watching, please subscribe, share to your mates, thumbs up, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks, guys. Trial and error.
What was happening at the back of his neck?
Reflection of lights coming in. I can see the lights. Lights are there.
There you go.